Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. This is my second time making this recording because the first time StreamYard decided it didn't want to allow my sound for the videos due to the incapability of basically having a decent platform. Sadly, I don't have many options otherwise, though. But I made sure all the settings and everything are good to go this time, so we should be fine. Now, this is going to be, I probably went a little further into it detailed than I was intending to. So again, I will try to reiterate at the beginning of this one. There will be some mentions of some companies, and I will not go too deep into those companies until I make a standalone video for those at some point in the future. I was trying to do it earlier, but some things happened and just haven't had time to gather all the necessary pieces and bits. But the good news is that we'll touch upon them just barely, and hopefully you'll just take my word on stuff so I can keep the video short. Otherwise, it'll get way longer, and I think half of you probably like it long form content and half of you prefer it short form. So I'm trying to keep it as short as possible, but it'll still take some time because we're going to be watching two videos, or it's the same video, but it's two clips of the same video, and they have their own length. I can't really control the speed at which they do or do not talk, but we'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. So please bear with me. So I guess we'll jump into it. I'm sure you guys, if you're anywhere in the Tolkien fandom, have probably heard of the OneRing.net. And yes, this video is kind of about them. It's not kind of, it really is. So they have some interesting takes on some things. And by interesting, I mean the first clip, it just seems like they are not aware at all of how reality works. And in the second one, they also are not aware of how reality works. So we're going to go talk about it. So I'll just let them speak for themselves in some of the topics, and I'll comment on them as they come because, quite frankly, it's depressing to watch this, just saying.
Today, folks, is the release date for Return to Moria, and this is a video of Matt Rings playing the game.
Matt's
for
playing
4
a preview
hours.
of it.
He was so
How
it is
lovely.
out now. You don't need it's out. You can buy it. It's on PC
nice.
on
By
the
the way,
Epic
out
Games
now.
Store.
Matt is in reference to, I believe, the Nerd of the Rings. A couple of these, I don't know the names of all of them, but there's several of these Tolkien groups that were big fans of the Rings of Power, and Matt from Nerd of the Rings and the guys from the OneRing.net are definitely among some of the bigger ones of shills, I should say, of Rings of Power. So take that as you will.
Geez, well, maybe I should open up the Epic Game Store and see how much it is. But
I'm honestly surprised he has the Epic Game Store on his computer at all. Just saying.
Return to Moria is out. It is $39.99. So that's cheaper than the Gollum game was at release. So $40, and it's just a fun game. I just had this on in the background.
It's a fun game that he watched somebody else play. That's how he decided it was fun. It was like, well, if you played it yourself and you don't find it fun, then is it that fun of a game? Now, I'm not saying it's not a fun game. People I know that have played it have found it enjoyable. I don't know many people that I personally know have played it, but I've watched gameplay and it looks interesting, but I would never say it's fun until I've played it. That's just silly. But I don't think for a moment he's played it.
This afternoon as Matt was playing it for 4 hours, and it's just
4 hours, amateur.
Lot of mining. It really is. Like you
It's a lot of mining in the mines of Moria. Who saw that coming?
keep walking and you keep mining, and then you
Yes, walking is how you get from point A to point B. I know I'm being a little bit more pedantic, but this is like he's obviously making this up on the fly. He did not pre-script this. He is literally ad-libbing it. I'm ad-libbing it, but at least I know what I'm talking about. That's the fun part.
once you have enough materials, you build a new axe to mine harder
Nice.
walls.
This is painful. This is really painful.
It's not like levels. There's not quests and levels where it's like, all right, go into this dungeon and go.
That's because it's a survival game. It is not an MMO.
Defeat this big thing. It's like, no, it's kind of a casual game, and it actually seems like it's more fun the more players you can have. Now that it's on PC, I can tell you it's up to 8 players at the same time. You can all play remotely. Just log in together.
Because, when you play together with 8 other people, you all share the same computer. The fact is, it's sad that probably their audience, they need to explain this to them.
And you can play 1 player together, up to 8 players together, or you can play single player. But it's just a lot of running around, and then it's so much fun.
Again, I don't think he's played it at all.
You're like in these dark caves, and you can only see by candlelight, and then you break through a wall, and suddenly it opens into this huge old Moria thing.
All of it is old Moria. It's all Moria.
And there's swelling music and everything like that.
Well, this is so cool.
So,
now,
Return to Moria is out now. You can buy it. It's $39.99. I highly recommend it.
He recommends it as a person who's never played it. Check.
Don't understand what the debate is between Epic Games Store and Steam.
All right, this is the 2 companies I was trying to avoid talking about. So, brief history, and please just take me at my word until I make the video, and then you can decide more on that. Steam offers a lot more than Epic, and most people have Steam, not Epic. Epic has a lot of cons to it and not really any pros, except maybe they give away a free game every once in a while. And then Steam kind of gives away free games occasionally, but Steam just does more to help the developers and the consumers, but at a slightly higher cut. It's not like 100% cut. It's like a much slower cut. So the war between Steam and Epic is that on Steam you have all your friends, you have all that type of stuff. Why would you buy it on Epic and then not be able to play with your friends on Steam? That's the point. Because if you buy it on Epic, it doesn't automatically get added to your Steam library. If it was, nobody would care. But nobody would use Epic because they just do it on Steam. So we're not going to cut too much into that, but he doesn't know because he's not in the know.
As far as I'm concerned, they're both exactly the same, and
they are not the same.
And some gamers need to get over this.
Never tell someone to get over something, especially that they're passionate about. That's just you'd think people would get this into their heads by now, that when you tell the internet not to do something, they typically do it even harder. Pun intended. It's just one of those things where you're trying to tell people what they should or shouldn't care about. You're trying to tell people what they should deem to be valuable to them. You're trying to tell people you should care about what I think you should care about, not what you care about. You don't do that. Now, you can put your 2 cents in. It's like, I don't think this is as big of a deal as you guys think this is, but each to their own. That's fine. But going in and saying, you shouldn't care about this, and it's like, but I do, because I have my reasons. I don't get it.
PC versus Mac situation.
PC is superior to Mac when it comes to gaming. End of discussion. That it's not even a debate. Like, nobody with themselves. I know plenty of people who work in the Macintosh, Apple, whatever area you want to call it, and they just say it's not built for it. The game cards, all that, not made for Mac. They're just not. Don't know what to tell you. Like, it's Mac game back when I was growing up was $40 for a game that was $10 on PC. And those are games that did not require graphics. They're not like Cyberpunk 2077. They're not for Witcher 3. They're not for Grand Theft Auto. It's literally for like the most bare bones games that came out in the 90s because they had to recode everything for Apple, thus the $40 price tag. There's no comparison in the market. If you have a Mac, you're not going to have as much fun with games because you won't be able to experience them at the full tier. It's a simple fact. If you like Mac, that's your prerogative. I personally don't like them. Apple is not my favorite company by a long shot for a lot of reasons, but gaming, the thing I do probably the most, just not fun. But needless to say, that he doesn't know because he's not in the know.
Because it's still a PC game. It doesn't even matter where you buy it.
Okay.
I never.
He doesn't matter because he doesn't use Steam or Epic. He doesn't use it. He doesn't have friends, whatever the case may be. He doesn't use it. That's why it doesn't matter to him.
I don't remember anyone arguing like, oh, I bought mine at Funko Land. Oh, no, I bought mine at GameStop. Oh, I bought mine at...
Who goes to Funko Land? Anyway, he makes the point, but completely opposite to what is actually the case. Buying a game at Funko Land, buying a game at Vintage Stock, GameStop, or Best Buy, Target, Walmart, that's not the same thing. Because those still end up on the same consoles if you buy them for that console. If you have a PlayStation 5 and you go to GameStop to buy it, it'll work just as well as if you went to Walmart to buy it. There's no difference because the game is designed for PlayStation 5. On PC, it's not just, it's a PC game. No, it's a PC game sold and locked to a specific third-party platformish type thing. Like Steam's would be, I would consider like the PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo of PC. So it's where everything is basically at as like a platform. Then other companies like Epic, who has Fortnite and what was it? The game developer software. It's not Unity, it's the other one. I always forget because it's kind of pointless, but that's them. Then you have Origin, which is through EA. You have Ubisoft and Blizzard, Activision, all that stuff. Like there's different ones. If you buy one on one, it's locked to that one, not to the other one, unless it's Steam. And then Steam, you buy an EA game, you have to have Origin to play the EA game because EA made that mandatory, not Steam. But you can get it on Steam, have it localized there, have the Steam overlays and stuff like that somewhat apply, and then you still have your friends list, you still have all that type of stuff, but you can play it on Origin. But it means you have to have another third-party type system platform. He doesn't know because he's not in the know. He's does not strike me as a gamer at all, except for maybe Tetris or Pac-Man or something like that. Like he does not show he has knowledge of the area, at least for PC gaming. Maybe he has it a little bit more for PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, whatever. But even then, he's a little bit stretching it by saying that it doesn't matter where you purchase it. I'm like, well, it does on PC because where you purchase it is where it's locked to. I have games on GOG.com, the guys who run like Cyberpunk 2077, City Project Red, and Witcher 3. But I have those games because I got those for free through Amazon. I have them on Steam too. They don't connect in the conveniency of it. So they're on different platforms. They do different things. They don't crisscross. So
software, etc. Oh, I bought mine at Best Buy. No one ever argued what store you bought the game at.
Again, consoles versus PC, they're very different situations and scenarios. He's arguing the console system style. He's not arguing the PC style, let alone the digital style. Because PC, back in the day, if you bought like Age of Empires 2 at Walmart, it worked the same as if you bought it over at, some other place, Best Buy. It worked the same because that's how PC games were made when they were physical and there was no platform. Now there's a platform, Steam, and you don't have that process anymore. So he just clearly does not understand how this works.
But for some reason, gamers love to argue over Epic Games.
Because some of us care. We want the best experience as consumers, but we also want the best for the developers, and Epic just doesn't do that. For another video.
There was a comment early on in the show saying, asking should Gimli even have a large role in the Moria video?
So John Rice Davis came back to reprise his role as Gimli, obviously as digital, and people are arguing about lore stuff, which I'll let him talk about. But the whole point is that this takes place after the War of the Ring. So why would Gimli not be involved? I don't really know, but they're saying it's lore breaking. It's like, okay, lore breaking as opposed to Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of War was pretty lore breaking, you know, Helm Hammerhand being a Nazgul. The Nazgul were around well before Helm Hammerhand was even born. Like, whatever.
Game, he should be Lord of the Glittering Caves. Well,
I was just about to mention that question.
Well,
yes.
if you play the game, if you actually play the game, you don't even have to play the game. If you just go to the YouTube and type in the trailer
To the YouTube
that we showed last week, you would know that Gimli starts off the game literally at the Glittering Caves
and
when
then
he
comes
gets
out
an owl with a
Mhm.
note that says, "Come back to Moria."
Gimli, you're a wizard. You're a wizard, Gimli. I believe the dwarves don't use owls. I mean, maybe they do as like a messenger birds, but I'm pretty sure they use the talking ravens because I've seen actual gameplay where they use the talking ravens to come talk to you. That is technically lore correct. The thing is like in The Hobbit, that's how some information was transferred between dwarves, but they were supposed to be a very rare species. So maybe since then they've cultivated that species and brought them back. I don't know. There's a lot that could be assumed that Tolkien did not touch upon, but needless to say.
Yeah, all of the clans are uniting to reclaim Moria. And that's literally the name of the game.
Mhm.
Return
Reclaiming Moria.
to Moria.
Return to Moria.
That's right.
So it's in the title of the thing. Gimli is at the Glittering Caves and he gets called back. And then when you start the game and you return, you create your character, you can choose where you're from, including the Glittering Caves. So everything is in lore. And I
wouldn't say everything is because I don't know yet for certain. This guy hasn't played it all, so he doesn't know for certain. I mean, there could be something in it that's not lore accurate, but so far that's not a complaint I've been hearing, so I'm going to assume until I've played it, when it comes out on Steam, that it's lore accurate.
was watching this, the chat room was going wild. There were some people saying, well, that's not in the lore. Well, then other fans would chime in and said, actually, in this chapter, in this book, it is.
And if you have evidence of something being in lore or something that isn't in the lore, that's when you present it, and then people can either accept it because it's actually true and they've researched it themselves, or they reject it because they feel like it and they're not really trying to be a fan, they're trying to be correct. It's the whole, I don't want to be correct, I want to be right kind of thing.
In the lore,
which I might add is exactly how these guys were about Rings of Power.
Orcs really were there, and the goblins really were there, and there really was.
There's also Uruk-hai. There's also, and again, after the War of the Ring, so hypothetically, Uruks could have gone over there. They could have started breeding again, gotten an army back up, and been inside the Mines of Moria. Possible. There's also some trolls, which cave trolls would you expect? Duh. There's also potential for Durin's Bane. Not the same Durin's Bane, different Durin's Bane, allegedly. But again, lore accurate. He doesn't know.
Alpacas underneath the mountain. I don't know why, but it makes sense. So
he doesn't know why, but it makes sense. That doesn't make sense.
You'd be surprised how much in the game is actually justified and true to the lore. So,
but you've lost your reputation, so how can we trust you know what you're talking about? You have not played the game. You've all but admitted so. You basically said, I watched somebody else do it, therefore this is the case.
If you just want to spend 4 hours watching someone play the game, there's a ton of Let's Play videos on TikTok and YouTube.
Nobody uses TikTok.
Today and all week. And of course, Nerd of the Rings has his 4-hour playthrough currently on YouTube. By the way, he's nearing 992,000. I'm sorry. He is so close to 1 million subscribers on YouTube. So please tell all your friends, create a new account. Let's get Matt, Nerd of the Ring.
That's not how YouTube works. If you have subscribers, but you never have any of the interaction, you don't get the markets, you don't get the ad revenue, you don't get that stuff. You don't generate the comments. You don't, like, anybody who's dipped their toes in YouTube should know this stuff because it's kind of important details if you're trying to make this a job. Which I assume with almost 1 million subscribers, it's his full-time job. He researches, allegedly, Tolkien stuff, allegedly, and allegedly thinks, allegedly, that it's a good idea, allegedly, to do this channel, allegedly, without, allegedly chilling, allegedly. And again, maybe the guy's a really nice guy, but being dishonest and disingenuous about content, especially around Tolkien stuff, when your entire thing rotates around, not a good look.
Things to 1 million subscribers, because we'd love nothing more than
that would be very brilliant. And if there's
succeed.
anybody who could do that, it's the worldwide Tolkien community.
The one that obviously rejects your guys' shilling. Needless to say, that video's done. And now for something completely different. So we're going to jump into the second one, but ultimately the piece of that clip was, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know a whole lot because you didn't research it, you didn't do it, you just watched somebody else do it. And that was only for 4 hours of content. And typically, I think it was for like the average Let's Play or whatever, like if you're doing like a research as a game journalist or something, the minimal play, I want to say, is like 10 hours, the minimal play, because there's a lot of like the first part of the game could be great, the second part could be horrible. So like, I played 4 hours and I basically got out of the tutorial. This game's great, 10 out of 10 is not a good way to review stuff. So I mean, you can always go watch my playthrough of Hogwarts Legacy, and I put at least 18 plus hours into that game, if not more. I probably put closer to 40, but that's my playthrough. That's what I thought it was. I thought it was okay. I'm not a Harry Potter fan, so it was an interesting viewpoint for me because it seemed pretty fun. Some of the stuff didn't make sense, but it was put there mechanically for the reasons of the game. I worked with it, still thought it was okay. It did get a little repetitive, but I'm not going to go completionist on that game because it was a long game and it wasn't Tolkien. But anyway, let's jump into the second one. Now, to set the stage for this one, basically someone in chat calls him out, and you can see it right here. It says, Jason Peterson, this live stream just proves why most of the Tolkien community doesn't respect One Ring Net anymore. Now, the whole thing is 2 hours long, so if you want to watch it yourself, I'll put the link down in the description. But their reputation has kind of dive bombed amongst the grand scheme of the world that is the Tolkien world fandom, because they tell people what they want to hear and they say what they want to hear. They don't say what is actually the case. And I'm not particularly a fan of people who destroy their principles or drop their principles or whatever you want to call it, dispose of their principles to make a buck or to be popular or to experience something one time. Like, oh, I shilled for Amazon, they're going to have me come to the premiere of Rings of Power season 2. Boo-hoo. Like, that doesn't sit well with me. But hey, there we go. Oh, you also see somebody down here going, watch it, Jason Peterson. Like, the diversity of thought is just dead. And he's not even like calling them names, swearing at them, or anything like intense. It's just literally just saying, hey, this is just showing why people's opinions of you have dive bombed, which is more or less an actual fact. In the overall community, these guys don't have as much sway as they might think they do. even though they used to be entertaining and they used to be fun before Amazon showed up. So let's see how they take and handle criticism. It's going to be great.
So
You know what? In response to Jason Peterson, who's in our chat, you do not need to be here and be so unkind.
Unkind? Making a statement that you have not proven to be false is not unkind. Unkind is if he called you a loony bin or something.
Mr. Mann, you are not here on our show to insult us or to insult the integrity of who we are.
You have insulted your own integrity. No one else has to do it for you. Like, that's literally when you have principles, you stand by them. But if your principle is selling to the highest bidder, then you've already shown what your principles are. Just saying, like, you yourself have not done this thing because you're saying you can't insult us and our integrity. What integrity? You've shattered your integrity. That's the problem here. If you hadn't, people would still probably love your content. This would never be a comment that appeared, except maybe by a troll, but everyone would just assume it was a troll. The guy is literally saying this. Now, I don't have all the context in this clip, but it is in the chat where Jason Peterson says, except you literally just said that 5 minutes ago. Quote unquote, it's more Tolkien than what Tolkien wrote. That's literally impossible. You cannot be more of the author than the author because you are not the author. You will by default have different things. You could have the most copycat type of writing style in the history of mankind, and you still could not be that author because they have their own thoughts that you do not have access to. Even if they have access to all the notes, they don't have access to the thought process. And if the thought process is split between, you know, oh, I'm following the notes, but the person behind, the author, is actually thinking like, this is the principles I'm setting in play and they can't be messed with. And then the person who's like, I have the notes, and then they mess with it, shows they're not the author. So you can't just say it's more Tolkien than what Tolkien wrote and expect people to be okay with it. That's insulting the author. You're insulting the integrity of the author at the author's expense. And then you're mad when somebody comes on and says, this is why we lose respect for you, because you caused us to lose respect.
As a community, and we will not tolerate that. But I will answer.
Well, yes, you won't tolerate it because tolerance means I disagree, but you're allowed to say it. That's what tolerance is. And you're saying we won't tolerate it. So you won't just disagree and allow them to keep talking. You're going to try to censor because that's what you do when you hear a different opinion. Now, well, I'll save that for later. We'll get to that.
I will answer you, Jason Peterson. This live stream, he says, just proves why most of the Tolkien community doesn't respect the OneRing.net anymore. Well,
it's not a troll if it's more or less a true statement. I don't know what just happened there. There we go. Whatever. YouTube is being stupid. What else is new? So you got one guy going, oh, it's trolls. And it's like, you're not a troll if you're stating a fact. If you're a troll, you're typically putting out something that isn't true, or you're trying to misguide people. That is not the case.
You're full. You are full of it. And
yes, you are, good sirs. You both are rarely full of it.
And we don't need you here.
Now, this is something that irritates me, even about some YouTubers I enjoy, where they call out their audience every once in a while and just lay into them. They might threaten banning them or whatever. It's just like, it's childish. I don't understand. I don't agree. I'm not like pro censorship. The only time a ban should be effective is if it's criminal in nature or it's intending for someone to get harmed, which pretty much goes into the criminal nature thing. So anything else, it's just their opinion. Like, that's just like your opinion, man. Like, it's just their opinion. If you don't like it, let it hit you and go by. It's gone. It's not a big deal. But every time you get like egotistical about this, which as I'm coming to learn, every time I like click on random YouTubers or anybody else, just most YouTubers are extreme egoists for some reason. They think very highly of themselves when in some cases, I mean, maybe it's valid, but very rarely. And you don't have to be a dick about it if you think highly of yourself. Let's put it that way. But in most cases, it's just they think they're like one step below God, walking amongst mere mortals. It's silly and just. I'm not going to say that word. it's silly and irresponsible. Let's go with that. But I don't even like it when I hear people I enjoy, because it changes my perception of them, because they're like, hey, I'm a nice person. Screw you in the chat. It's just a very wonky way of saying I like my fans. And if they're not your fans, it's not that big of a deal. But even then, I don't want to follow people who are acting that way. So him going all egoist in this video is just silly.
We're having a great time having conversations about.
You can have a great time of any conversation, even stupid ones. Oh, I said it. It doesn't matter if you're having a great time if the content isn't valuable in that regard. And if you're going out of your way to actively piss on somebody else's work because you want to be a number one shill of a company, then that's not a them problem, that's a you problem. Like, you're already throwing your morals out the window.
What is wrong in the rings of power, what is right in the rings of power.
But you've stated to everyone in the world what you thought was right in the rings of power, and every time I recall, with maybe the exception of one or two things, was not lore accurate. And most of the time, quite often the opposite. So I don't understand what this is supposed to do.
We appreciate about it, what we don't appreciate about it.
There's a lot more appreciation than not. Just throwing that out there for anyone who doesn't know.
We have such an open bandwidth without having to resort to that kind of negativity and trolling, which is a lot of horse shit.
He also missed the second part of it, where Jason Peterson pointed out that it's like, it's more Tolkien than Tolkien, what Tolkien wrote. Like, he glossed over that part. It's very important. If he had responded to that particular point and said, I'm not sure what you're talking about, or maybe he goes back or whatever, maybe he doesn't. I mean, he literally just said it a couple minutes ago, so it'd be kind of hard for him to not remember that. But that's the claim. You're saying that this is more Tolkien than Tolkien, which is impossible. That's a fact. There's no if or ands or buts around it. You can have an opinion that differs, but that doesn't mean it's a fact. It means this is in fact the case. You cannot be more Tolkien than Tolkien. You cannot be more George R.R. Martin than George R.R. Martin. You cannot be more Robert Jordan than Robert Jordan. You cannot be more of an author than that author that you're alleging to be. It's not possible. It's just not. And then you're going out and you're saying disrespectful things, which apparently you don't believe are disrespectful, about said author. Guess what? You're just fooling yourself, as well as probably everybody else, into thinking that I'm not being disrespectful by praising somebody else, because I'm not doing it at the expense of anyone, as you do it at the expense of everyone. It's just...
And we don't want you here.
Also, Jason Peterson, it's not unkind to have an opinion, which is true. But I don't think it was an opinion. I think it was a statement of fact, because we have video evidence stating this. It's not rocket science, guys. It's literally like, if I say, I don't know, like, don't quote me on this, but if I said Rings of Power was so amazing, Tolkien could never have written this good, that's an insult to Tolkien. No matter if you think it's a funny context or anything, it's still an insult. Unless you go, just kidding. Which you did. You don't. It's not. So, unless you're like, you don't have to tear someone down in order to raise somebody else up. You could say, I thought Amazon did a really good job, without saying Tolkien couldn't have done this as well. These are kind of things that is like, they're not mutual comparisons. You don't have to be rude and disrespectful to the person who put their heart and soul and their life into this when you want to praise something else. And especially when it's something else that's verifiably not good quality, because it causes more problems than it fixes, and it shouldn't have to fix any problem, because it should just be good to go beforehand. And they're not pulling this. And he's saying, we don't want you here. I'm like, well, nobody wants you going out and pissing all over Tolkien's grave either. That's not something we want to come here for when we're the fans of Tolkien. So, yeah.
So, bye-bye. It's time for me to block you and say bye-bye.
Man does not take criticism very well. And he will block you because his little fifis were hurt, I suppose. Like, instead of addressing the actual problem, like he thinks he addressed it, he didn't address it. He pointed it out, he didn't address it. Instead of saying, no, we do respect Tolkien, and then somebody popping a clip of, we do respect Tolkien. Tolkien couldn't even do as good as this. Those are conflicting things. They don't work together. So that's just silly.
And also, after 25 years of volunteering, all of us are.
Length of duration of volunteering, making, look at that, those crazy eyes. Length of duration of service does not equate to correct. It's one of the great fallacies of our time is that I've been doing this for 5 billion years, therefore I'm right. Or I'm this many years of this and this, blah, blah, blah. I'm this, I'm that, I'm whatever. I'm God walking amongst mere mortals. But
pure, unadulterated, doing it by the
unadulterated, it's just, that's a bit of a stretch. I mean, you may have in the past, in the future, not so much.
seat of our britches, volunteers because we're fans. And that is the community that we've built out of a very wholesome and open-handed and understanding place where people
wholesome. Whatever helps you sleep at night, buddy.
Can talk and share and not feel like they're being attacked.
Oh, here's a great one. Go Cliff, go Cliff, go Cliff, tell him. That's a truth seeker right there. Jason, you're out of touch. Cliff is a superbly based Tolkien fan. I press X to doubt. Press X to doubt. And both have called out what they thought the show failed out week in and week out. And they missed like 90% of the show. Yeah. If you don't blindly hit the show, you must be a shill, these people. No. If you... No one blind... People didn't just go, I hate the show. Did you watch it? No. So why do you hate it? I just blindly hate it. Nobody did that. People watched the show and were heavily disappointed. There's a reason only 37% of the population that watched it actually finished the show. 37%. That's a massive drop for a good show. And if your points are all based around things that don't exactly ring true in the Tolkien legendarium and are not Tolkienian by any stretch of the means, like Galadriel being the reason Sauron was evil because, in the writings of Tolkien, he was never evil to begin with, or some nonsense like that, or the fact that she was evil, she wasn't. The fact that she was a commander of the elven armies, no, she wasn't. She was like a princess queen type character that was very powerful in magic. Why would she go on a battlefield and swing a sword about when she could just be herself and be wise and well thought of? When in the show, no one thinks well of her. Like, that's the whole reason. Gil-galad is like, get her out of here. Like, send her back to Valinor, which you can't do, mind you. You just can't just be like, we're going to one free Polar Express ticket to Valinor. Like, it's not how this works. It's not blind hate when it has a lot of evidence. Like, you could just string out possibility after possibility. Like, if somebody made a Rings of Power or an anti-Rings of Power platform, like on YouTube, Rumble, Kick, whatever, Twitch, whatever it might be. If they made something like that and you just broke down one thing a week, maybe two things a week for all the issues in the Rings of Power, just season one, you'd have enough content to last you 10 years. if you took them one topic at a time. You could make a video probably 10 minutes to 30 minutes to an hour to 2 hours, depending on how deep you wanted to go into it, just for one issue. Every time you hit an issue, you go through and you point out all the things. You could easily do that. They didn't do it. I'm definitely not doing it. I got too much on my plate. But also, I'm not an anti-Rings of Power channel. I'm a channel that talks and questions things that specifically avoid the truth for the most part, and other things that just bad takes and stuff like that. Like, it's not the purpose is to sit here and hate on Rings of Power, even though I do not like Rings of Power. I mean, go to the library, watch the videos I did reactions to it. I don't like it. It was bad. It was Minecraft self-deletion was a real issue at that time point, because it was just doggy. That was painful to watch. Anyway, yeah, so
any way whatsoever. So this business of you coming into our show to attack us is not going to stand. Not going to.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're probably sitting at the point in time, but yeah. So they're not going to stand. Checkmate. Maybe he's in a wheelchair. Did you just be rude to a disabled person? Bad take, buddy. Bad take.
Stand for it. This is not why I volunteered the past quarter of a century of my life to the study of J.R.R. Tolkien.
You can incorrectly study. It happens literally all the time. Check scholarship. There's scholars that disagree on the most obvious of things, and they still disagree. You can be wrong. It's literally possible. So just because you study doesn't mean you actually studied correctly or studied the right things. I mean, if you're going to be in scholarship, you have to be aware of that. Because if you're going to study anything, like, people study all the time and they came up with Common Core math, for crying out loud. Like,
to the study and analysis of popular culture and how they absorb and respond to the great works of the professor.
How do you diss him and praise him in the same video? I mean, I guess you got 2 hours to do it, so maybe somebody will forget that you dissed him previously, and then now you're praising him. The great works that we don't think were good enough, so we had to have them change it and all that jazz. Whatever. But he's like, wow, people don't share your opinion, so you attack them. Got it. Jason Peterson. And it's just like, yeah. Now, one could flip it on its head and say, Jason Peterson, people don't share your opinions, so you're going to attack them. Well, he didn't attack anybody. He made a statement that appears to be true because of their own actions and words. They're like, no, you're being disrespectful to come in and with nothing but insults and critiques. Well, critiques are not bad. Why does everyone have this mentality that critiques are bad? Critiques are not bad. Critiques are just showing the value or error in something that somebody says, does, or whatever. That's all it is. It does not. There are good critiques and there are bad critiques, but they are not correct or incorrect critiques. So a bad critique is somebody who doesn't really do a good job of critiquing. A good critique is somebody who does an excellent job of critiquing. Like, you actually hit the points as opposed to just glossing over them. You actually go through every little detail instead of just glossing over it or saying, it's my opinion, therefore that's my critique. It's not just supposed to be your opinion. It's supposed to be based on some substantial fact or evidence. Like, this shot was very well shot using said camera by said person with a lot of skill, and they did that type of stuff. That's not your opinion. It's saying that, like, comparative to other projects and other things that are well-known, great film shots or something, there's a reason it's a good shot. It was shot at a good angle, had excellent lighting, the cinematography was fantastic. It's a good shot. And then they add the music into it, and then it compiles into this thing, and you build a critique. You don't just say, I liked it, and that's my critique. That's not a critique, that's an opinion. A critique is pointing out things that were good and things that are bad. And if you can't do either of those, it's an opinion. If you can only do one of those, it's half of a critique. If there's nothing bad about it, you're not looking hard enough. There are issues with even some of the greatest stuff, like the Lord of the Rings trilogies. They didn't follow the books completely accurately, but there's reasons they didn't do that because they didn't have time. And they're doing 3 films when they were originally only going to get 2 films, but they're like, let's just do 3. There are things you can critique. Like, I wanted Tom Bombadil. I wanted a 1-for-1 adaptation, but guess what? They didn't go that way. Still good films. Still amazing films. And if you watch the theatrical versions over the extended edition, you are committing a sin. I said it. And I stand by it. But this whole thing with like, oh, insults and critiques in case you're not still listening to their stream. It's like, well, they wouldn't be able to see your comments either if they got banned. So what? But here's the funny thing. He hadn't insulted them. He stated that you guys are the reason your reputation is in the dumps. It's your guys' fault. It's you are the ones that are the reason it's in the dumps. Nobody else's fault. Yours. How dare you insult them? That's not an insult. Go look up the word insult and find out that the definitions have meaning and value. And if you don't know what they are, you're probably going to misuse the language a lot.
His literature and his legacy is constantly celebrated with full, vocal, unadulterated joy of how much we love Professor Tolkien.
But he didn't do it as good as Rings of Power did it. You know, the guys who actually authored all the Tolkien Legendarium.
And support a fandom that can embrace his works on any level, any adaptation of any kind.
Having an opinion is not unkind. What is unkind is how you express your opinion. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So, the OneRing.net is unkind because of how they express their opinion. I had an epiphany, guys. They're just unkind. That's the gig. We can be unkind without blatantly insulting the professor, and we'll just be unkind. That works, right? Nobody would notice, possibly. But then he goes, Jason Peterson is being yelled at by Roak Katie. It's like, you literally just came in and said this is why no one respects me anymore. That's not an insult. He didn't say because you're a buffoon, because you're bimbo brained. It did not say that stuff. He said you are why people don't respect you anymore. That's not an insult. That's a statement. And if you disagree with it, then address it. No one in the comments has even addressed it. They're just shill defending, being like, notice me senpai, or whatever. Like, you don't need to defend the person from their own words if they're correct. But clearly, they're correct, and they need to be defended for some reason, whatever.
And if you have a differing opinion about how we have lost any respect, you're living on planet Claire. Look it up. It's an old B-52 song. So while you're out there on planet Claire, you can just stay there because you're not in orbit with us. And we don't need you with your negativity.
I believe they call this gatekeeping. Not the good kind of gatekeeping, the bad kind of gatekeeping. You disagree with me, therefore bye. Not a, we're trying to preserve the legacy of the people that we actually care about.
And you're horse shit. Not going to have it.
Wholesome.
Okay?
Wholesome.
Now, I speak with this kind of clarity.
Defending Amazon's abomination of Tolkien's work is why my opinion is what it is. Fair enough, but again, he didn't insult them.
And vocal, insistent authority that you're hearing in my voice.
You don't have any authority in your voice. You have a deeper voice. That's literally it. There's no authority. You might be passionate about this, but you can be passionate about bad stuff. I mean, lots of bad people in history were passionate about what they did. Still bad people.
Because I've earned it.
That is not how it works. You do not earn respect because of length of duration, length of study, or whatever. You earn respect because people will respect you because of your behavior, because of your actions, because of your words. More of your actions than your words, because words are meaningless without action. But in this situation, if I was to stand out and say, I demand, because I earned this respect, I'd be completely in the wrong. Why? Because respect doesn't work that way. People, for whatever reason, for however long, probably thousands of years have thought it works that way. No, no, no. If this guy wants to go out and earn my respect, he has to be upstanding. I will begin to respect him because he's upstanding. That is him earning my respect. He doesn't get to say, I've earned your respect, or I've earned respect. That's not how that works. It's the same thing as a person who says, I'm wise is not wise. Other people say that you're wise. That's how you know you're wise. You don't say it yourself. You don't attribute things to yourself. So that person's really wise because they made good decisions. They've planned for things. They've done good in life. They're wise. They're wise people. They speak the truth. They're caring. They're blah, blah, blah. They're wise. And that person doesn't have to acknowledge or anything for them to be wise because other people recognize their wisdom. I don't recognize his earned respect because that's not how respect works. You don't earn respect to where you get to say it's been earned. You earn respect because people have given it to you freely. That's how it works.
I have earned 25 years of respect from all the things that we've done, all the articles, all the joyful events.
That's a bit of subjective for joyful events. But again, you did not earn respect because of 25 years of voluntary service or study or whatever else you might add to that buzzword pile of words. That's not how this works. You're digging the hole even deeper because you're using fallacious arguments in order to make yourself look good, to that you earned something to make a point when you still haven't addressed what you actually stated. You're just saying, I earned stuff. That's not an addressing of your reputation going in the dumps because of why, I wonder. Why is it that your reputation would go down in the dumps in the Tolkien world? Because of your words, actions, etc., etc., etc. When you apparently unknowingly insult the person you claim to admire and enjoy his works, it's not exactly a good way to go about this, but
all the humanity of good people in good conscience and in good taste that we have.
It's good taste because they like me. Totally unbiased. Totally unbiased.
Brought together under our umbrella as a community. And we've done more for the J.R.R. Tolkien fandom than you, sir, could ever attempt to do.
That's impossible for you to know. You have no idea what Jason Peterson... I'm not saying Jason Peterson has, but you literally have no way of proving that. You're literally just spitting out the words like they're fact when they are in fact not fact, because you can't possibly know what that person has or has not done for the fandom. And you're trying to say that you did something for the fandom. The most you could claim to, or put claim to, would be that you entertained for 25 years. That's at most what you could do, because nothing you have done has affected people who have never heard about you, and they're still in the fandom. Like, you entertained a swath of people. It could be 5,000 people. It could be 100 million people. It's still not the majority of the fandom. And all somebody has to do is point out, I should say, this is a bad take, and you get upset because you've earned respect and you demand respect and all that other stuff, and clearly don't understand how it works, and you're a quarter of a century of not knowing how it works, plus, obviously, because I'm assuming you're not 25 years old. But I digress.
On your own. And so, bye-bye, Felicia. Bye-bye.
And there you have it. Egoists at their finest. And if you thought this was silly, this is basically how anybody who acts and behaves this way is basically, in my eyes, at every video they do this in. So, I would make an appeal to YouTubers. Don't do this. Don't do this. This makes you look sillier than it already was. And I do not have the words to describe what happened here. This was a slaughter. but not in their favor. They very much ruined their own reputation. And if you're trying to build a persona of being a friendly person, a happy person, you don't just go berserk on somebody. You don't censor them. You don't ban them. You don't do any of that stuff. That's just not what you do. There's no other way to put it. Sorry, like there's not even respect for the dead in this case, but I will leave that for another time. But this is what I wanted to cover, because they put their foot in their mouth and shoved it so hard it came out the back of their head, and they're obviously not in any way, shape, or form looking to apologize or anything really. Like they're on a train track with a one-way destination, and they're determined to pump ahead as far as they can, as fast as they can, with no remorse. And that's their mindset. That's their view, purpose, I guess. So if you enjoy their content, feel free to still enjoy their content. I stopped liking their content when they started moving away from Tolkien content and into their own la fantasy land. So, theonering.com, however, give them a shout out. You guys are cool. I like you guys a lot. There's a bunch of other ones that are decent, if not even more than decent. And I would say go check out the good side of the Tolkien fandom that actually does care about the Tolkien stuff. And maybe they will, maybe they won't talk about Rings of Power. I mean, you're not required to, but if you're looking for that kind of thing, just check with them and see if they have that kind of content. If they don't have that kind of content, that's up to you to whether you want to still stick around or not. A lot of the good content is the one that doesn't cover Rings of Power, because Rings of Power is not noteworthy to really talk about. I mean, obviously, just seeing the stats from Rings of Power episode 1 to the final episode of the season, people lost interest like crazy. So talking about it on YouTube is probably not the greatest income for a YouTuber, but I'll go ahead and stop here, because you know how it is. I could talk for hours on this thing, and I could have called up the Council of the Light and been like, hey, let's do a video together, but I wanted to get this out, and if we did the Council, this would be like a 6-hour video, and hopefully they'll remember to watch this and have their own opinions in the comments and whatever. But if you like this content that I make, and you would be so kind as to hit like, subscribe if you enjoy the content, and leave a comment, whether you did or did not, doesn't matter. I'd like to hear your opinion. If you'd like to press X to doubt on these guys, feel free to do that in the comments as well. Most of all, though, if you could be as kind to share this video with anybody you might know or in groups you might be a part of, and say, hey, what do you guys think about this? I would greatly appreciate it. And I wish you guys have a fantastic holiday season. I should have a video or two come out before the new year, so keep an eye out for that. We'll see how we do. So thanks again, and everyone, as always, walk in the light, my friends.